What's up, Disrupt Nation? And thank you so much, everyone, for joining the Super Creators Podcast. I'm your host, Super Manny, and today I have a very, very special guest who I'm excited to have on. Also coming from New Jersey native as myself. A little bit of an intro before I bring him on. Just let you know he is a filmmaker and director born in Lima, Peru, but grew up in Newark, New Jersey. Currently working on building Slyponder, which is a production hub that creates and distributes music videos and short films, and occasionally works with small businesses to create social media content. So super excited to bring on board my good friend, Jose Torres. What's up, man?
What's good, Disrupt Nation? Is your boy JT. How's
There
it
you go. What's up, man? So it's been a long time since we got a chance to chat or meet.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw you. Was it at Propelify? No, right? Or
It might have been.
that was almost a year ago.
Yeah.
Literally.
Propelify 2018. Like last March, April. Yeah, it's been a year. Good year.
And you've been around. You just got back from Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah. And actually I'm going to Houston this Sunday. So I'm like bouncing all over the place, but excited about that.
Yeah, man. So yeah, thanks for having me on. It's
No,
pretty fun
sure.
to see where this conversation goes and
Yeah.
what kind of questions you got for me.
Of course. No, I'm excited. And like I always say on every podcast is the point of the podcast is always to bring on, it's to introduce the creators who are behind all the work, because we're not just pixels, we're not images, we're people. And I think that the person behind the art is the most important thing, because that's where the story comes from. It comes from the person and translates into the art. So Jose, really quick, just so the people know like a little bit about yourself and how, like, as now you consider yourself, or like what you're working on is filmmaking and directing. Right. But how did you get started in the arts or in creativity? Was it always filmmaking? Was it like drawing, or what was that backstory?
Cool. No, it wasn't always filmmaking. In fact, I never thought I'd get into working with a camera ever. After graduating high school, I got into Rutgers Business School in Newark, and I was a finance major. So for a long time, that was just my thing. I was just into finance.
Okay.
And but like the idea of creativity always lingered in the back, like always. In high school, my best subject was always English. So naturally, I was good with like words, with writing, speaking in public, and things like that came naturally to me. Like I would always get A's on my essays and stuff like that. But at the same time, I was always into business also and entrepreneurship. And when I applied to Rutgers, my idea of entrepreneurship kind of just laid into finance. Or account, like you have these business majors that you have to just pick, right? Like accounting, marketing, finance. And so I was like, okay, like I want to get into entrepreneurship. I'll just pick one. And finance was the thing. But the problem was that for a long time, I struggled with this paradox in my mind that I knew I was really passionate about learning. Like I love to learn, like absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate school.
Yes.
And that was a paradox that I genuinely struggled with. And so it came with me when I got to college. I enjoyed learning. I just didn't like the way in which I was learning. And so what happened was my grades were not that great. They weren't so great, and it got to the point where I was placed on what they call academic probation.
Okay.
So my GPA was like dumb low, and on paper I didn't seem that smart, but I knew I was pretty smart. And
I get that.
And so what happened was I had to meet with like the one of the deans at Rutgers Business School. And so the day of the meeting, I had to wait outside, right? And what ended up happening is, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I was bored just waiting to get called. I took my phone out and I started recording myself from different angles, just for fun, just for kicks. And then after the meeting, I looked over the footage and then I created a 1 minute Instagram. No, it wasn't even a minute. It was 15 seconds. A 15-second Instagram video, mini vlog, because back then Instagram only allowed 15-second videos, way back. And I uploaded it to Instagram. And immediately I just fell in love with that process of just capturing motion picture, editing it, and then showcasing it. And then I started doing this every day. Like I would literally just film a random part of my day and then turn it into a 15-second mini vlog for Instagram.
Nice.
And that's kind of how it started. And then I started discovering the world of YouTube, right? And the first person I came across was Casey Neistat.
Perfect.
Who influenced my interest in the arts heavily. So much so that I even got the same camera that he used to use. And that's kind of how I got into it.
That's awesome. No, that's great. It's and I think it's that's how it is with all types of like art and creativity, because it's not something that you just say, I don't know, oh, I just want to be a painter, or I want to, it's, you see like a painting and you're like mesmerized by it, like the style, the brushes, the colors, and then you're just like, let me try that. And then you just like fall in love with the process. So that's great that you just you were there shooting with your phone, and then you started splicing it, putting it together, and then you just love the process. That's awesome.
Splicing. Yeah, that's actually the name of the app I would use is called Splice.
Was it?
It's an app. It's an app. I think GoPro owns the app. But it's like very like it's the simplest form of editing, just like cutting and pasting together kind of stuff.
That's it.
But yeah, I would just record on my phone, edit on my phone, and distribute on my phone, like all in one.
Yeah, no. I remember when actually there was I have to shamefully say this, but I remember when we were gonna start doing the daily like Instagram stories, and I completely like botched that project, because we're gonna upload it back to back, the like the Insta stories, like 15 seconds or whatever.
Yeah.
And then like I just couldn't keep up at the time.
Yeah,
I think I can keep up now though.
I love doing, yeah, I love doing those. Those are fun to do.
Yeah. So then, all right. So then after that, and then so you got your camera, you started filming. So then, how did you continue the process? Like, what was the next step for you? Like, did you automatically know what kind of videos you wanted to make, or how did you get into that process?
At first, it just became it was just, let me look at what Casey Neistat's doing, and try to like follow his process and stuff like that. So I didn't really know what I wanted to, like the approach I wanted to take. All I knew is that I had a camera, and the camera had the ability to record stuff. That's all I knew.
That's it.
And my friends started taking note of this, and then one day, one of my friends had asked me to help him with one of his projects. So he had like this project for his finance class where he had to like invent a company and take it through the process. And one of those process is creating marketing for it. And so he asked me if I would like write and direct a commercial for him for like his project. And I was like, yeah, for sure, no problem. So I came up with something, I wrote something down, created some dialogue, and then we started shooting the commercial at Rutgers Business School. Now, mind you, this commercial was not like some high like shit you see on TV. This is just a school project, fun, right? Well, I looked at it as fun. He had a project to do, and so we're filming at Rutgers Business School, and in between one of our takes, this random lady approaches us, like it was just some twist. I don't know, some twist of fate. Like this random lady approaches us. And I guess she approached us because I had a camera in my hand. She came up to us and she's like, are any of you guys like video students or film students or whatever? And at the time, I mean, none of us were, including myself. I was still a finance major.
Yeah.
I still said, yeah, I am. Because I guess technically in my mind I was studying on my own time. So I was a student of film.
A film, exactly.
So technically I was. So I said, yeah, I'm a video student, whatever. And so she gave me her card and she's like, hit me up if you want an internship. I was like, okay, dope. So uh, the internship was for a company called Tempo Networks. It's a Caribbean TV station headquartered in Newark. And so I applied for the internship and I don't know how I got it. I have had no experience in video. At the time that I applied to the internship, I didn't even know how to edit. I mean, I knew how to edit on Splice, like the very basic app.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what Final Cut was or whatever. I didn't know anything. And I told them that, but they were willing to like teach me everything. So I was like, okay, dope. And so I got the internship and I spent the whole summer. This was summer of 2017. So between May and September, I was an intern at Tempo Networks. So I was helping them film and edit TV shows that they then broadcast. They broadcasted here in like the tri-state area, but they mainly broadcast their shows in the Caribbean. Like they're really big in the Caribbean. And that was like my videography 101 film school. And then after I learned all of this, I was like, wait a minute, like if I can learn this for free a lot faster than most video production students can, there's no way in hell I'm about to pay college to teach me the same thing that I just learned for free.
Exactly.
So I decided to just part ways with university and be on a pursuit of self-education.
There you go. That's freaking amazing. And I remember you telling me that story once about the internship. So I'm happy to hear like the full details. But yeah, no, that was hands-on. You got in, you started learning, they taught you what they could, and then you just went on from there.
Yeah, that's where I learned all the basics of like camera settings. At the time they were still editing with Final Cut Pro 7, so I learned like a lot of the basics and stuff like that. So it was really dope that I was able to do that. And it was really like I was at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Like lady, so she was a host and a producer of some of the shows, and I don't know what she was doing at Rutgers Business School, to be honest. I never asked.
It's true.
Maybe she had a meeting with, I don't know. But I was at the right place at the right time, and I took initiative because like I could have done nothing after she gave me her card, right?
True.
But I took the initiative of like reaching out to her and saying, "Yo, like I'm actually serious about this. Can you work with me?" And that's where I started.
Okay. And then after that, so that was your like kind of, let me say, like, I guess you're like the baby steps, right? Like you got all your training in, like now once you finish with the internship, it was like training wheels off. I got to go and find like what I want to do from this point on.
Yeah.
So then what was your first, I don't know, what was the first thing you went into? Like, what did you think about? Were you just like, oh, I got to make money off of this, or I got to learn more, or?
Yeah. So I actually never really thought of how I could make money off of this, at least in the beginning, because I was just having too much fun with it. It was a hobby. It was a hobby that then became a passion. But at first it was a hobby. It was just something I had fun doing and had fun learning about. So I continued to do these mini videos for Instagram, and then I started releasing like educational kind of vlogs on YouTube. Because like I said, before picking up the camera, I was very big on like entrepreneurship. And so as early as like sophomore year in high school and stuff like that, I was exposed and to books like Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Yep.
Rich Babylon, The Art of War. I was really moved by personal development. And so the first types of videos that I would put on YouTube was me talking about these books. I've done videos on like talking about Peter Drucker's Managing Oneself. So I used what I was really interested in and combined it with the medium that I was currently learning. to, one, educate the people who are watching, but then reinforce my knowledge on the topic as I was.
Exactly.
So those were really the first approach I took it, as far as like YouTube goes.
Okay. No, and that's actually, it's good because like you said, you already took what you were interested in, what you already knew, and you just shared that knowledge with everyone else. And I honestly think that's the purest form of media or communication there is.
Yeah.
Because when you try to like be something or explain something that you kind of don't know or don't have any passion for, it's like it's redundant and you can like tell. But when you're just excited about something and it's just like bubbling inside, you could talk about it for days, hours, and it's just it's like cameras on, cameras off, it doesn't matter. I can do it.
Yeah.
So all right, that's dope then. Actually, I didn't know about that, and I got to check out those videos because I've read some of those books, but not all of them. So if I
Yeah.
can get a quick intro to them through your videos, that'll be dope.
I think the last video I did was on the book, The Four Agreements.
Oh, you know what? I didn't finish reading that yet. I
It's
literally have it like right here, and I'm on like third chapter or whatever, the third agreement.
it's a very easy read, and those four agreements are very, like, you should check the. I think the video is still up on my YouTube. Yeah, it's a great book.
No, for sure it is. I remember when as soon as I picked it up, it was actually a gift from a friend, and as soon as I started reading it, I was like, this makes total sense, and it's like, yeah, everybody needs to read it. They do.
Great book, yeah.
I remember getting into an argument with somebody about, because I asked them if they read the book, because I just wanted to explain like about one of the agreements, and it wasn't because like they were right or I was wrong or like whatever the case. And I had just mentioned it, like, oh, did they read it? And they were like, gave me this full answer of, yeah, I read it, and this and that. You think you're more like educated? And I'm like, that wasn't the point, but okay. But it was just funny because it was like opposite completely of like what the book was, and I was just like, all right, I'm just not gonna get into that.
Yeah.
But I have that story. So then, so after you started with like some YouTube and things like that, but lately you've been getting really serious into like filmmaking and directing. So, I always see you put up posts of different directors. Even today, right, is Quentin Tarantino's birthday.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I remember I seen that post. But yeah. So you've been posting a lot about that. And actually, one thing about me, even though, I also work with cameras and film, but I still don't consider myself 100% like a filmmaker or, like that, like directing. And I feel it's because I still haven't studied the basics, or let's say the classics of film. So every time I see your post, I'm always reminded of that. I'm like, man, I gotta watch these movies. I gotta study this. I gotta find out like, the origins to at least have the base, of the art.
Right.
But like for you, like, so what excites you about that, about like filmmaking and about like different directors? Like when you see their movies, like what do you pick up on?
So for me, it's actually not really so much about the camera. Um, I'm just somebody who really loves storytelling, right? And this goes back to
Awesome.
my
Yes.
my strength, and because I know it's one of my strengths. I know back in high school, English was my thing, writing was my thing, and so I really believe that great storytelling has the ability to inspire action. So storytelling is my thing. It just so happens that I do it through camera.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what inspired me about some of these great directors like Tarantino, Scorsese, and stuff like that. And that's really my approach to filmmaking. That I start with the story and not so much the visual, like the pretty images and stuff like that.
Okay. So, and actually that's good. I wanna kind of go off on that because you mentioned you go off the storytelling, meaning literally the camera is just there to give some type of idea or give some life to the words,
Right.
in a sense, right? Because even like you said, if even if you have a great film, filmed by the greatest camera, the highest definition, if the story is garbage, if it's not there, it's not going to be interesting to watch.
Mhm.
And this is actually a conversation I had with a few people, because I would ask them, like, I would show them some pieces of content, and I'm just like, when you look at that content, do you see it as being filmed on like a professional camera, or do you see this as like an iPhone footage? And most of the time people are just like, I don't care. Like, I don't think, like, they don't think about the camera that's being used. They think about just what they're seeing and the story that's being told to them.
Right.
I feel like it really doesn't matter technically the camera, but the storytelling is the most important part.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, the camera doesn't. I mean, it matters a little bit, but it's not what you should focus on, and that's what people focus on too much today.
Yes.
Like when you mentioned like the idea of like social media and stuff like that, most creatives
Mm-hmm.
and videographers are so concerned with the equipment that they use that they forget to master storytelling.
Yep.
And that's where they lack in their in I don't that's just where they lack. Um, Maybe it's just a social media thing. I'm not sure. But yeah, having the best equipment doesn't mean you're going to create the best story.
Exactly. 100% agree.
There's this there was this movie back in like 2015, I think. Um, it was made with a huge budget, right? I think it's called Pan. It had like $150 million budget. Now with $150 million, like I'm sure they can afford the best types of cameras that exist.
Mm-hmm.
But it flopped. So why is that? Why did it flop? At the same time, there was this like documentary that came out. I forgot what it was called. Um, Shoot, I forgot what it was called. I might have it in my notes somewhere actually. Because I literally like this the past like month I've been on like um super rigorous like study sessions.
Definitely.
Oh yeah. Okay. So in 2003 there was this documentary film called Tarnation. And
I gotta write that.
oh yeah, you want to take some notes down? Yeah, this is good shit to study.
Sure.
All right, so in 2015 there was the movie Pan, produced by Warner Brothers with $150 million, flopped. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They had the best equipment they could possibly have. This is fucking Warner Brothers, but it flopped. In 2003 there was a documentary film called Tarnation. The movie made $1.2 million. Guess how much the budget was?
Which one, for Tarnation?
Tarnation, yeah. Tarnation is the good one. The
Yeah,
movie,
the good one.
$1.2 million. Guess how much the budget was?
50K?
50K? No,
100.
not even close. The people who made Tarnation made it for $218. And it went on to make $1.2 million. So you're talking about they had the like, I mean, what can you make for $200? They went on to win a bunch of awards and grossed $1.2 million. So I don't know. You tell me like what's more important, the equipment or the story?
Yeah, for sure. No, now I gotta watch it because I gotta see what they did with $280.
Yeah.
But no, and that's 100%. And it's funny that you mentioned about, because I like going on the social media tangent, just because it's what like what we live in and stuff like that. And you were mentioning that a lot of people are just focusing on the gear and the equipment, and there's not much storytelling, and like you mentioned, there's creatives and videographers, and it's so then what do you like? I guess what's your take on like the media that we see today, and I say media, mostly it's on social media, but it's like, is it that people are actually doing it for the art, for the creativity, for themselves, or just like I'm cool, so I got to keep up with the, the status quo and the norm and whatnot? Like, how do you see like all the media is being created now?
I think all the media being created now is super unimaginative. And it's kind of a fad. Um, I think to kind of understand this, so there's just like theory in architecture that tries to study the idea between form and function. And they have this adage that goes form follows function, right? So form is how something appears, and then function is that thing's actual purpose.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I learned about this was actually during my very first internship was at JP Morgan, uh,
Okay.
in Park Ave in New York. And JP Morgan has one of the largest private art galleries ever. So they have an art gallery inside the building itself. And one of my mentors at the time used to walk with me and like talk to me about the art pieces there. One of them is this basketball made out of bronze. I think the guy's name was like Jeff Koons or something like that. But he made this like sculpture. It was a Wilson basketball made out of bronze, right? So this piece really looks at the idea of form and function. So what he's trying to say is that a basketball in its form is spherical, right? It's hollow, it has air inside. Its purpose is to bounce. It bounces when it hits the floor. But when it's made out of bronze, that basketball still has all the forms of a basketball, but it has lost its function.
Oof.
You can't bounce a bronze ball on the floor. It no longer has a purpose. It's meaningless. And so the way that I attach that sort of thinking to what you see on social media today is that if you think of form and function, you can think of content and context.
Yep.
So the people today are focusing too much on content and how something looks, but not on the purpose and the intention or the meaning of what they're trying to show. There's no context. And so just as like architectures would say form follows function, I would say content follows context.
True.
And so when you have content without context, it's meaningless, just like that bronze basketball.
Basketball. Woo! That was good stuff. Love it, man. And you know what? I fully understand what you mean by that, because it's technically the struggle that I go through.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously nowadays most of the content that I'm creating is more for um, either businesses or personal brands and things like that. So of course there's a certain like style and way of approaching it, but my biggest argument always with myself and everybody I'm working with is I'm not going to film just to film. I'm not going to record something just to record, because in my mind, I have to have the context first. I have to know, what is it that I want to present, to who, why, what is it I want to tell them, and then I'll record for that purpose. So usually like when I do like for my personal work, it's for me, it's super easy because I already have that down first. I know the
Right.
context. I know where it's going. I know who's it for, who's the audience, what's the message. So when I go and record, it's just 1, 2, 3,
Mm-hmm.
and it's done.
Right.
But usually when it comes to like, client work or the normal things that you see on social media, it's always content first and then try to make something out of it. But that doesn't really work,
Yeah.
And it's like, now it's something I just thought about. It's like you have a dictionary, it has millions of words.
Mm-hmm.
But just because you use all those words doesn't mean that you're going to make sense. You know what I'm saying?
That's
So that's
funny.
what I feel like. Yeah, yeah, I'll record and shoot, and I have tons of B-roll and tons of like the A-roll and this and that. But just because I put it together doesn't mean it's actually gonna make something.
Yeah, that's kind of
So
mentioned that dictionary stuff. It just makes me think. Um, you ever encounter somebody who like likes to sound smart, so they use big words?
yep,
In their use of big words, they kind of really don't make no sense.
totally.
Yeah. And being somebody who I love to study words. I mean, it was just like my thing growing up. Um, every time I write essays, I always choose to use the shortest of words possible. Because my goal is not to make you think that I'm smart. It's to make you understand me.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, and when you see it, if you want to apply this kind of theory to like the content context dilemma, the videographers and creatives who focus on content with all these pretty images and dope aerial shots of drones, their goal is to make you think that they're smart. They know how to edit.
Oof, 100%.
You know what I mean? But in reality, they don't. They're putting up a front, and that's
Yes.
the problem.
Mm, I love it. No, that's finally somebody said it. Somebody.
And I just have to say that.
Yeah, no, 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 and that's honestly, this is why I do this podcast because it's just to educate, it's to learn, and it's not about and like I always say, it's not about judging. But if they feel offended, that means you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I mean, I'm not.
Nobody who's in the right gets offended.
I never really think about if people get offended or not. I mean, my goal is to just
Just
call out the observations that I have.
yeah, facts are facts.
Yeah, I just I see something how it is, and you just call it out that for what it is. Um, and if it offends you, I mean, I guess I'm sorry, but in the pursuit of truth,
You're not sorry.
sometimes you get some people upset.
Yeah. No, no, no. And for sure, and the reason I like 100% resonate with that is because it's the field that we're in. So I see it all the time. And then like when people try to tell me to do my work a certain way or something, I'm like, look, it looks fancy, it looks
Yeah,
cute, but it's not functional
right.
and it's not the purpose. So it's like, yeah, I can throw tons of transition, tons of B-rolls, light flare over here,
Yeah.
drone shot, but it's like you
So
don't need it. It has nothing to do with what you're selling, who you are, your brand.
yeah,
So
it makes me.
that's why I try to stay away from that. Like even though I kind of fight myself sometimes because I feel like, oh man, I'm not as good as these other people. And I'm like, no, it's just I don't need that. If I need to use a transition or like some dope effects, I know how to do it 100%. But do I want to do it? Does
Right.
it need to be done? It's like, but I see it all the time. And there's some people that do have great storytelling
Hmm.
with great visuals. And
Right.
those people are just astounding,
Right.
you
I
know?
mean, yeah, but their focus was always first in the story.
Yep.
The visuals support the story. It's not the other way around.
Yep.
Um, but it's funny that you mentioned like the transition, like using like in terms of like editing, right? So editing today, the way you see it on social media, or the way you see it on most people's vlogs and videos, is the overuse of B-roll.
It's intense.
Now, first, I want to point out first that like if you're working with a business, it's kind of different because they have like an expectation of like what they want to present or whatever. Um, but when you're doing stuff on your own, it you have the freedom to be creative, but you just don't know how, and that leads you to being the same as everybody. Like everybody tries to be so different. When if everybody is different, then everybody is the same.
Yeah. I get that.
And so what happens as you see it on social media and YouTube is the overuse of B-roll. Um,
Yes.
like
Let's talk about it.
All right, let's talk about it. So B-roll, right? You see these.
Just do it. Just lay it.
All right, so first of all, B-roll in cinema has a slightly different definition than B-roll in social media content. B-roll in cinema and film is very important. Like capturing a character walking, like B-roll is what you use when there's no dialogue in the frame. It's very important to tell a story. But the way you see it on social media or how it's used today is just a bunch of pretty looking images with the same transitions. Everybody uses
20 frames per second, slow
yeah,
mo.
20 frames per second. Everybody uses the same transition, like all the whip and the pull outs and shit like that. And it's a montage, so everything is really fast. And so the thing about doing this is that it's actually not hard to do that. Like it's very easy for you and I to Google presets and Google transition packs and then slap it on our footage. You can't righteously call yourself a creative if you're slapping transitions on your footage. The hard part is knowing how to tell the story. That's very hard. You can't Google or YouTube. Like if you YouTube how to tell a story, you're gonna have a hard time learning it as quickly as you can if you YouTube how to edit. Because learning how to tell a story is like learning grammar. Learning grammar is very hard. Like you're not gonna learn it in a week.
Yeah.
It's something that takes years to practice. When I YouTube something to edit, I can like have the tutorial up and then Final Cut Pro open and just do what they do. And I
100%.
get the
Yep.
same result. And so that's not creativity. That's laziness. And so you have a lot of quote unquote creatives that do this and they pass off as experts in the field. And it's kind of troubling.
Very troubling.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that this type of style of editing actually has a root. So I want to say like, so you see this style of editing, right?
Mhm.
You ever ask yourself like, where did this shit come from?
I
So
have.
it actually came from somewhere. Okay, so there's this short film called "The Watchtower of Turkey."
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
You've heard about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so "The Watchtower of Turkey" is I think it was first released on Vimeo by this guy named Leonardo Dallas something. He's an Italian filmmaker. And the Watchtower of Turkey is basically just that. It was the first time that we saw somebody edit that way. A bunch of B-roll that uses transitions like whips and like pullouts and these really cool images that happen really fast. A montage of B-roll. And it was the first time somebody did it. And it was so different. It was really different. Never done before. It was one of those purple cow moments. Have you heard of the purple cow theory?
Mm-hmm. I've heard of it, but not. I don't know.
So basically, there's this guy named Seth Godin,
Yes.
and he created this theory. So basically, the purple cow theory is that if you're driving by with your friends by like a range that has a bunch of cows, and one of those cows is purple, you're gonna be like, guys, what the hell? Look at that purple cow right there. So basically, it says that anything that you remark on by nature is remarkable. So at the time when the Watchtower of Turkey was created, it was that purple cow. Everybody was like, wow, look at this. This is so different. We've never seen it before. And people thought that it was so different that it couldn't be copied. But everybody after that tried to copy and emulate it and stuff like that. There even exist like transition packs that are called like the Watchtower transition or like Turkey presets and stuff like that because of this one video. And that's kind of like a little bit of like the short history of how that kind of came about.
Started, yeah.
But the Watchtower of Turkey, I mean, have you seen it before?
I saw snippets, but I'm definitely gonna watch that today, like for sure, for sure.
It's not that long. I think It might be between like a minute or 2 minutes or something like that. But it's literally just B-roll. It's B-roll the way you see B-roll today. But it was the first that did it.
It was the first.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. No. I definitely got to look into that, but it goes against like what you're saying. It's for the guy who did it first. He's a creative.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is what we call biters.
Biters.
Yeah, because they're biting. They're taking his style. They're chomping it up.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. It's like it's one style of editing, and depending on when you need it and why, it can be really well.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know, man. Like, you're not gonna like literally. I could use that style in just like a bottle of water right here on my desk, and just make a dope like 30-second video of just but it's not. What's the point of it? And even like you mentioned about like the importance of B-roll, and like even when I think about it, just like in the sense of the word B-roll means it's not a roll.
Right.
It's not the main footage,
Yeah.
So it's like you have your main footage, your A roll, and then the B-roll helps tie that in or helps tell that story. But B-roll in itself is not a story. It's not context.
Right. There's
No,
I feel you. And the truth of the matter is, nobody gives a shit about your drone shots or your time lapses.
very true.
Like drone shots and time lapses and cool B-roll like only work if there's meaning behind it. Like if I'm doing like I don't know, man. I don't know, man. It's just
No, say it. Exactly. Just say it. Because it's because the point is to educate.
right.
The point is to educate the why it exists, what's the use of it, and it's true. It's true. Like, okay, it's like just going off of what you were gonna say, or like part of it. Like nowadays, I understand social media, Instagram, and all that. It's just your form to place like your art and stuff like that. So I get it. If you're known for doing time lapse and you upload a time lapse every day, that's cool. People will go to your page to see that time lapse because that's what that medium, that platform is for. It's for that. It's simply, I do time lapse because I think it looks nice. I want to post it, and I have a whole feed full of my time lapse.
Right.
It ends there.
Well, by the way, I want to say this. I'm not saying like it's bad to do this, right? Like creating pretty images and cool B-roll is fine. What I'm saying is, don't try to pass off as the highest level of creative if this is what you're doing. Like it's fine, like do it. Like, you're gonna learn and stuff like that, and it's fun to create. But you're not at you're not at that level of creativity that like that's up there. You're doing what everybody else is doing, which is fine at first. But those who succeed find their own unique voice or their added layer to it. See, that's the thing about creativity and that. Okay, so Pablo Picasso has this sort of this saying about artwork and like stealing and stuff. Have you ever heard that saying? He said that good artists copy and great artists steal. So what he means by that is that when you steal an idea from somebody, you can't just outright do exactly what they did. You use it and then you add your own layers to it to create your own.
You make it better.
You make it better. And that's kind of like the path that creativity is supposed to take. Like you're supposed to be inspired by other creatives, but you shouldn't do exactly what they're doing. You should take what they do, figure out ways to make it better or different, and then add your own layers to it. The people who succeed in the creative space are the ones that do that.
Very true. No, and and thank you for actually pointing that out, because some people might not know the difference. And it's like you said, as soon as the Watchtower Turkey came out, then everybody wants to do that style. Casey Neistat was the first one doing those type of vlogs, and everybody wants to vlog his way. Yeah. And it's like,
So that's the thing, right? So look, check this out. We're talking about adding layers, right? All right. So Casey Neistat was not the first vlogger, by the way.
True.
Vlogging existed long before Casey Neistat. You have people like Roman Atwood, who was just vlogging his life from start to finish every day, right? So Casey Neistat, he stole the idea of vlogging your day. But then he added the layer of, let me vlog my day using proper cinematography. So that was his added layer. So he's vlogging, but he's kind of creating mini movies at the same time, right? So that's what I mean by stealing, but then adding your own layers to it.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example. I remember, I think Casey, he explained it in the video, right? Once, like recently.
I've seen him explain it a while ago. I don't know if, I mean, I honestly haven't watched Casey recently. He doesn't post as often, but he has spoken about it before. Yeah.
Like how he goes into the process of like his vlogs and.
Oh yeah, yeah. He has a couple of videos that where he talks about like how he makes his vlogs and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, he added his own layer to what he was trying to use.
And that's what made him a successful creative.
Yeah.
For sure.
By the way, like if you think about stealing, if you really think about it, when you're thinking about copying versus stealing, when you steal something, your goal is to not let people know that you stole something.
Very true.
That's why you add your own layer to it. But when you copy something, everybody's gonna know you copied. And if you think about it that way, then that's
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Because it's true. If you do something, you want people to think it was yours from the beginning.
Yeah, and that's how much you want people to think, because people that copy also want people to think it's theirs, and they're just plagiarizing. They're not really adding anything to it. But when you steal the right way in art, you add your own flavor to it.
Definitely. And take note of that, everybody listening.
Yeah.
Add your own style to anything that you're doing. Because then it becomes somebody else and then it's boring. I don't edit like other people because it's boring to me. It's not the way I want to tell a story. It's not the way that I want to portray a certain, image.
Right.
And and it's funny that you mentioned that because a lot of times like working with Disrupt and working with Anthony, like he'll throw out some like some posts, like he'll be like, oh, check this out, look how they did this and look how they did that. And I get that he's trying to help by like giving inspiration, but sometimes I get mad because I'm like, I don't want to see other people's stuff, because if I make something, I'm gonna make it thinking about the functionality and how it works. I mean, yeah, there's tons of different ways that people have done, IGTV videos and then the stories and like this and make it like work. And even though it's long form, like vertical, but I'm like, but I don't want to see it because now I really don't want to copy that style or use it, because like now I know I saw it and where it came from. And I'm just like, no, like maybe if it functions for something later,
Yeah.
I can use it. But so it's funny because like for me, like I kind of get upset when people show me other work, like to kind of emulate, because I feel like it actually kills my creativity in a sense.
Right. I mean, that makes sense, but like I said before, I mean, if you're working with a small business, it's harder to be creative in that sense because they have a demand. And as much as you want to consult and advise them, their word is the final word. But when you're creating your own personal stuff, if you're doing the same thing as others, that's really when it kind of just makes you really unimaginative.
Yeah. No, I get that 100%. That's why it's like, I still have that like fight, within me, but I make it, I have to make it work. I have to bring.
I mean, on social media, it's social media like Instagram has its aesthetic of video, which is just that. But okay, so for example, somebody who really is an expert at context and content would be somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk. So in the beginning, I mean, he didn't have the best visuals. I mean, he doesn't, in fact, he doesn't even care about like the visuals.
He doesn't.
He cares more about the context of the message that you're receiving. So like if he's dropping nuggets, but the visual looks kind of whack and the edit it got fucked up or the audio is fucked up or whatever the case may be, the important thing is that you receive the message, right? It's not so much that I want to make your eyes dance elegantly while you watch these pretty visuals. It's more I want your brain to think really hard and really well about this message that I'm trying to give you.
Yep, very true.
And those are usually the best ways to deliver a message. So for small businesses that want to deliver messages, the context is a lot more important than the content.
100%. 100%. Yeah, because you can. I mean, think about. Have you seen those commercials from like I don't know? It's like Thailand or something, and it's like this guy. He's just like walking down the street, and then he sees like water falling out of pipe, and then he moves the plant so it could like receive water, and then he gives this little girl like $1 because she's just like sitting there, and it's like, and she's holding a sign. It's like, oh, help me like go to school or something, or buy my school uniform. And you see this like day after day, and then like on the 5th time, you see the girl actually wear her school uniform. And then the guy saw, oh, every day I gave her $1 or whatever, I actually invested into her future. Like it meant something. And then at the end, it's just like it stops and it shows the logo of like the bank, and it's like, use like invest in your future or the future of the world or something. And those commercials are the ones that like will forever stay. And like, even now I'm just like, if I were to use a bank over there, I would use whatever, bank that was. Like, you know what I mean? But because the filming wasn't so like crazy, but is that the story and the context was so powerful that at the end you're just like so touched and moved,
Yeah.
And it's funny because you don't see that a lot in American media, but you see that a lot in Asian media. They use a lot of like very like powerful, touching like stories.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see it often here too. To do something like that is where the story really plays a super high important role. If I were to take your average social media content creator from here and have him do that bank's video, they'd probably go find a drone and shoot some aerial shots of the bank itself.
Exactly.
Film some B-roll of a bank teller doing a transaction and make a bunch of cool whips and edits and shit like that. But with that commercial that you just mentioned that I've actually never watched before, I should take a look at it.
I got to see if I can find the link. I'll
Like
send it your way.
to create that ad, that commercial, somebody had to sit down and write a story, write a screenplay. And creatives, videographers don't know how to do that really. Social media.
It's true. And it's, and I say it again, from being in the industry and working and doing it, a lot of times you'll get that, oh, we need a video. The company, oh, we need a video. We need to show our store, our product or whatever. And I'm like, okay, what's like, I can't just go, I'm not going to go someplace and just film something. I'll first sit down with them. What's the message? What is it that you want to portray? What do you want them, how do you want them to react? And then we can write out the story and then capture the exact images that we need for that. So yeah, storyboarding is number one. If I don't have a story beforehand, I'm gonna go to a shoot and I'm gonna be upset. I'm gonna have like a bad migraine. I'm gonna be stressing.
Right.
But as long as I have the story and the purpose, then everything's gonna be like super, super smooth.
Yeah, no, I get you. And I mean, I'm not saying the story is important for sure, but what I'm also not trying to say is that there always has to be a narrative, because there's definitely a place for documenting. Like when you're documenting, you're not working off of a script. You're just recording whatever. In fact,
Yes.
the first uh the first films ever made were documentaries. Um, I don't know if you knew. Did you know that the camera was actually invented in New Jersey?
Was it?
Yeah. Did you know
I
who?
didn't know that.
You didn't know who invented?
Nope.
So okay,
Whoop whoop.
quick a
Look up
quick
some Jersey.
a quick history lesson. Um, so the camera was invented in like the late 1800s by Thomas Edison in West Orange. Thomas Edison created like probably one of the first film production studios in the world. It was called Edison Productions. So him and one of his like employees, WKL Dixon, he's actually the one that actually invented the camera. Edison just takes a lot of credit because he owns the company that it came out from.
Mm-hmm.
But the camera it was known as the kinetograph. It was this really big machine that sat on a table, and was able to capture motion. Right? They discovered that the brain understands motion when it sees individual pictures 24 times in 1 second. Right? That's how we have 24 frames per second. And so when the camera was first invented, right, we didn't initially think we can use this to tell stories. Like the first films were just filming whatever you saw, capturing footage of whatever you saw. After Edison invented the kinetograph in France, these guys known as the Lumiere brothers, they invented the cinematograph, or the cinematograph, which was like camera and projector at the same time and shit like that. And they would film what we call they would call actualités, which was like filming what you actually see, also known as like documentary style. So they would take their portable camera and go to like the train station and just film like the train passing by, and then they would show these images to audiences. And those were the first films. It wasn't until there was this other French guy named Georges Méliès. He saw what the Lumiere brothers did, and he was a magician. He was like a theater performer magician guy, and he saw this camera that the Lumiere brothers had made and shit, and he was like, "Yo, like you can tell, like you can create narratives and tell stories with this, right?" And that was the birth of the first film with a story. It was called A Trip to the Moon in 1902, I think. It's basically tells a story about a bunch of scientists who take a trip to the moon. They encounter a couple aliens. They beat the aliens up, and then they come back to Earth.
There you go.
But it was a narrative. It was the first narrative captured on film. I don't know if you've ever seen the image of like there's this very popular image in film history. It's like a moon with a face on it, and there's like a ship that's like stuck to the moon's eye.
No.
Okay, well, look up A Trip to the Moon. I don't know if you're able to.
No, yeah, I already wrote it down. I have a lot of research to do.
It's actually free. I mean, you can watch it on YouTube. A lot of these old classics they're free on YouTube. You can just watch it. But Georges Méliès like started the idea of creating a story using motion. And then you had like a whole period of a bunch of filmmakers doing just that. There's this guy named D.W. Griffith who directed Birth of a Nation. And then later on in the history, you have a bunch of guys who started doing documentaries. There's this very famous documentary known, The Man with the Movie Camera. I think it was a German film. there was a period in history where people really hated fiction stories. They believed that the truest form of cinema is documentary filmmaking. And The Man with the Moving Camera is basically just that. These guys started filming a guy who was filming, and then we go through his process of filmmaking. So there is a place to do documentaries. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, documentary is a huge, it's an important thing, right? You have genres in documentary like direct cinema or cinema verite, which are very important things. But the tricky part is when you try to document, and you start copying or taking things from what we were talking about, the current creative state of social media.
Mm-hmm.
You're documenting. You also become like meaningless in a way, because the function of a documentary or a document is to enlighten or educate or showcase
what happened.
Yeah. So when I pollute my document with pretty images that make no sense to the narrative, then I just created something that's meaningless.
Yeah. No, and I get that 100%. Thank you for like clarifying that, because these are things that you have to learn. Like you said, it's true. Like, all forms of like filmmaking are important. It depends when you use it and like why you're using it. So no one is greater than the other, and no one is lesser than the other. There's just a place and time for it.
Yeah, and how you use it is the context.
Yeah, and that's where the challenge is
Mm-hmm.
to use it in a way that's innovative, in a way that's new, and then making sense and captivating the audience. Is like, that's when like you can say like you kind of reach that level of creativity when you can take those forms and actually bring that that story to life.
Yeah.
So that's dope. I'm excited. I'm actually, this is why I wanted to have this conversation, because like I said from the beginning, I know I'm lacking in my like film history and things like that. And like even like some of the like top classic movies of like this generation I haven't seen. And I'm like, what am I doing? But I feel like I need to see it, not to copy, but to understand, to see the process, to and learn, basically, and to learn from these other filmmakers, and like what they went through and how they started it. And I think learning all of that will also make me appreciate a lot more the work that I do, because I always say, I think the origins of something, or the beginning of something, like is what makes something important.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I said, like you as a creative, like now knowing your story, knowing a little bit more of like your background, of like how you think things through. Now when I see your work, I'm gonna enjoy it that much more, because I understand where it's coming from.
Right.
Instead of just like seeing your work and just saying, oh, you're just another dude. But I know who you are. So when I see it, it's like, it just makes it that much more,
Right.
better, likable for me, at least. That's how I see things.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, like, I got all these notes.
Oh man, you're gonna need more sticky notes.
Yeah, no, I have more. I just wanna. I feel like if I write more, it's and I'm not doing my job of taking notes.
Yeah.
But no, but JT, this has been an amazing conversation. But just we're almost running over that hour mark. But one of the last things that I usually ask everyone that I interview is, if there is one piece of advice or information that you want to give to the future creatives, current creatives, whether it's advice or something that you would like to see more of or implement more of, what would be that one JT nugget that everybody can take home today?
I mean, I can drop hella nuggets, but if I had to pick like one or two maybe. The first one I'd say whatever you do in life, you have to have a a high level of self-awareness, right? Socrates said that the unexamined life is not worth living. And so if you live your life not knowing yourself, meaning not knowing what you're good at, then it's not worth it. Like to see, the problem with the self-awareness part too is that a lot of times what you want to be strong at is actually something that you're not strong at. And so
Mm,
you have to have that self-awareness to to know what you want to apply your efforts into, right? So for me, I have the self-awareness that I'm good at English, for example. I knew when I was in high school that English was my best subject, and I knew that telling stories was something that I was naturally good at. Writing is something that came naturally to me. And the reason I say naturally for me is because I mean I used to write A and B papers effortlessly. Like it
yep.
wouldn't struggle with them at all. And so now I actually work to make those strengths even better, right? And so I always like to say that I'm not. I never thought that I'd be uh, in the field of filmmaking and directing, but I'm not surprised that I am. And so I would say so in the beginning, before you dive into anything, to really have that self awareness that this is um, what you should be doing.
That is 100. That is amazing. That is actually, I'm gonna keep that one with me. That nugget. Because no, one thing that you said about it is usually not with your what you want to be good at is not necessarily your strength.
Right.
And that's something that I have struggled with a lot because there is a lot of things that I like doing, but I know what I'm not good at and I know how good I am at something.
Hmm.
So if I'm like at this level, then I know I'm just gonna do that at that level. I'm fine with it. I'm okay. That's not my thing,
Right.
But the thing that is, like you said, naturally, even I resonate a lot with that with what you said about like English because it was the same with me in school when they would give us like the literature exams. You had to write the open-ended, um, like they would give you an open-ended question. You have to write a story about it and something. I would just start making things up, and that would be like 90s, and up there. And I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. Like, I just wrote something. So,
Yeah.
like you said, it's like that natural talent or that natural talent for like some things. Some people have, other people don't. Like me, like I don't consider myself an artist because my brother got all the artist genes. Like he does everything from paper mache, graffiti, airbrush,
Hmm.
like anything that has to do with the arts, he picks it up and he gets it. Me, I'm like, I can't even draw like a stick figure, so I know that's not my strength. So that's definitely important. That self-awareness to know like what you are actually good at and to make that strength stronger instead of focusing on the weaknesses, right? And I think Gary Vee talks about that a lot.
Yeah. I would say that um, I would consider myself an author, and the camera is my pen.
Mm, that's a really good way of putting it. That is because that's how I see it. Like now that you were mentioning it, I see it as yeah, you're still writing. You're just writing with light. Right? Photographs is what it is. You're just
Yes,
you're
bro.
writing the same story.
You just literally defined photography.
Yeah.
Like photo means light, and then ography means to write. So it's to write with
So
light.
photograph. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're definitely putting that word to 100%, the use of its meaning.
Yeah.
Well, brother, this has been amazing. I'm actually excited to put this out and let people listen and learn and
When do
you
you
know
think?
oof. Usually, I mean, depends on how lazy I Could be up today, could be up during the week, but no, but I definitely want to get it up as soon as possible because this is good stuff.
Yeah.
So, one last thing, where can people find you if they want to check out their work, if they want to connect with you more, if they want to say hello? What's the best place?
Uh, Pretty much Instagram. So you can check out Instagram and YouTube, I guess, right? So my personal Instagram is at JT Venture. So it's like the word adventure, but instead of AD in the beginning, it's my initials, JT. And then slyponder, the company I'm trying to build at slyponder. And then on YouTube, you could also just go to youtube.com/slyponder. So
Perfect. And I'll have that texted out in the video and then below so everybody can click it and check it out.
yeah,
But
you have
brother,
you have a lot
huh?
of you have a lot of micro content you can create out of this.
Oh yeah, totally. And that's actually it's good that you mentioned it because now it's recorded, so people are gonna uh, call me out on it because I've been meaning to create a lot of micro content from these different podcasts.
Yeah,
So
no, it's actually it helps a lot having these conversations because like the way I do it in Master of My Fate, maybe I can have you on it sometime soon too.
bro,
Yeah,
whenever you like,
is
my
I have
pleasure.
conversations with people, and then I'll just take a snippet of it and just distribute it as micro content. So, but in
Yeah.
this conversation, I think we talked about a lot of stuff. Um, if you want to send me some of this like raw footage too, like I mean, I would want to post some stuff up too.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. As soon as as what you call it, everything saves, I can send it over your way without any problem.
Awesome, bro.
Dope. Jose, thank you so much again for getting on the show with me. It was a pleasure. Um, Sadly, I'm leaving soon. I'm leaving Sunday. I don't know if I'm gonna see you in person until then, but
Oh yeah, you're
if
leaving
not,
to Houston, right?
yeah,
Oh,
Sunday.
yeah, cool.
Not sure. Probably like a month or so.
Oh, what the fuck? Is
Yeah,
this for Disrupt?
yeah. We have a client out there, but I'm also moving out there. So I'm gonna be
To Houston?
yeah. So I'm gonna be in between Houston, Jersey, and Puerto Rico.
Wait, are you permanently? Oh, so not permanently. You're just gonna be.
I'm gonna be permanently
Oh
living
shit.
out in Houston, but Disrupt is permanently in Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
and Newark is the the
Yeah.
meeting point. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm good. I'm still gonna be traveling because there's work to be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's gonna be exciting. So
I'm happy
I
for
will
you.
finish off the podcast with my little saying. And first of all, thank you everybody for listening. Jose, thank you so much for being on the show. And everyone, go check out all of Jose's work. I'll leave all the links here so you can check it out. And remember that each and every one of you are super creators. You just have to find your superpower. And with that, I'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.
Because I was talking to Elvis just basically about like that about filmmaking. He was just mentioning about like he saw Kill Bill, and I'm like I still haven't like seen it, but he was mentioning about like how Tarantino's films and like his way of like storytelling. And then he mentioned about like Reservoir Dogs, how it's like telling about like a heist, but they never really show it. They're just like talking about it. And there was one more film that he mentioned. Um, I forgot which one it was, but it was basically like one of those like classic films about like space or something else. And
Was it an old film?
what's up?
Is it an old movie?
It was an old movie.
It's probably 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick.
That one. Hmm.
Okay.
So he was mentioning about like that and showing me like the visuals on it and how it was filmed like 70 millimeter film and
Oh my god. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So it was just like when he was saying that, I was just like, man, I really got to catch up on like all these different films and like film styles I could learn from it.
If you really want to learn from a style, so Tarantino is one of my favorite directors. Just right off the bat, I'm gonna say it because not only does he know how to tell a great story, he knows how to break the rules of traditional cinema. So
Mm,
what I mean by that is and if I were to give anybody another piece of advice is is know the rules and then know how to break the rules. And so what happened is, you should look into, there's this movement in the history of cinema known as the French New Wave. So the French New Wave was a period in cinema that happened after World War II, and the people in it were really fed up with the way movies were made, because up until that point, from the start of cinema in Hollywood to the 50s, Hollywood had this formula to creating a story. There was a formula, and there was a bunch of rules that you followed to create and direct the movie. So what happened was, the people that started the French New Wave, people I would say one of the most important directors during the French New Wave is this guy named Jean-Luc Godard. He's a French director. I'm pretty sure he's still alive. He's really old though. But the French New Wave was all about breaking traditional rules of cinema. So basically, they simple rules too. Like, for example, in traditional cinema and film, it's tradition, if you're filming dialogue between two people, that the camera should be on them when one person's talking, in front of their face, right? But the people in the French New Wave, specifically Godard, he was like, why? Fuck that. I'm going to film dialogue, but the camera's going to be on the back of the person instead. So if traditional cinema puts creepy, scary music during a scene of violence and horror, fuck that. I'm going to put happy music instead. I'm going to get away from this tradition, this unwritten rule, and do it this way. If it's traditional to let the audience immerse themselves in the story, fuck that. I'm going to use edits like jump cuts to remind people that they're watching a movie and distance themselves from the actual story. I want to let people know that they're actually watching a movie. And that was forbidden in Hollywood. You should never do that. But they broke all those rules. And the French New Wave influenced people like Tarantino. He breaks a lot of rules. There's a lot of scenes that he uses that are influenced by this movement. The French New Wave. You should definitely look up that movement. It was
I'm definitely looking into that.
The rule breakers of cinema. They changed cinema forever. Because after that, another thing too, if YouTube existed during their time, they would be the YouTubers of their time. Because traditionally, at the time, Hollywood was all about you spend a lot of money on building sets. You have to work in a studio. You have to go through the studio system, which is working with the production company and then the distribution company and all of that. And they were like, fuck all this. We don't need to build sets. Let's just film our movies right on the streets that we live in. We're going to film our movies on the streets that we live in. We use this very low budget equipment and just do what we can with what we have. So they made it possible for the voiceless people to have a voice, to be able to create movies that were extremely, extremely low budget. And they really led the way for the indie movement, the independent filmmakers like Spike Lee, Tarantino, and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that it makes perfect sense. How
that's what YouTube is the idea you can create motion picture at an extremely low budget. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that is true. No, I really got to look into that, because I mean, sure, even nowadays, most people think when they're gonna record something or film something, automatically it's how much do I have to spend, or how can I build out the set? And it's you don't need that.
Yeah,
you really don't need that.
Just do it. Pretty much was their philosophy.
That is dope, though. So that's what it was called, the French New Wave.
Yeah, the French New Wave was the name of the movement. It lasted between the 50s and between the 50s and 60s. That's when it lasted. And the leader of this wave, I would say, is Jean-Luc Godard.
Okay, I probably butchered his name, but
So Jean is spelled like Jean, like Jean.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, the last name I definitely butchered.
Godard is Godard. He's still alive. He's just really old. I mean, he's not making great cinema like he used to, but he's very much alive.
That's dope.
But he was a huge influence on Tarantino. And if you study film, you can see the resemblance in some of Tarantino's shots. Like Tarantino has shots where he places the camera and he does close-ups of the back of the person's head instead of the front during dialogue.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of it, so that's why I haven't like much of his movies. But I like now that you mentioned it, I can recollect and like recall like some of those scenes.
Pretty much. So the advice is self-awareness and I guess know how to break the rules.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Definitely thank you so much for this. Yeah, no, as soon as I have this like the footage and if the audio and everything is correct, I'm gonna send it your way and then you can splice it up however you need to.
For sure, brother. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
No problem, bro. I'll hit you up later on Instagram so I can get your regular email where I can send it.
Awesome, brother. Have some safe travels.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. Take it easy.